too. Welcome. I know y'all miss me. Y'all like, where has he been at? Where has the man of mystery been? It's
It's
been
been two
2 weeks.
weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. James is in us. James is with us, not in us. It's a
That's an
whole different,
entirely different kind of show there.
whole different kind of show. That's a whole different website. Shouldn't go to those websites. It's not good for your brains. It's good, everybody. As always, I'm your host, Robert Solomon, and with me, as always, is my grumpy co-host. You know him as Spider. That's right, Spider,
The not Hitman.
not the sniper.
The one and only is what
Sniper of
they call
radio.
him now.
The
They
sniper
call
of
him the one
radio.
and only.
Do they really call him that? Who
Yeah,
calls him
they.
that?
I don't know, but that's what
Does
they named his show, the
does
one
his
and
friends
only
call him
Hitman
it?
show.
Does is it? That's not really what the name. Are you just messing with me?
No,
You
that's
serious?
what
That's
they call it, the one
ridiculous.
and only Hitman show.
That is absurd.
I mean, I don't want to come off like I'm just dogging on them. I don't, because that's not super professional. But they've been.
They have not been super professional towards us,
I
so
don't know what they've been doing lately. Like they've been just out of their minds here lately.
out of their gourds, out of their gorge is what they've been.
But I addressed
Anyways,
that last week.
oh, nice, nice. I was not here for that. I was laid up somewhere else. Anyways, what's going on? We tonight we're going to be talking about the whistleblower leaks. Well, not whistleblowers. They had congressional hearings, I think,
Hmm.
yesterday. Um, I don't know any of the other Congress folk that were there except um, Ocasio Cortez. She was there. No matter how you feel about her, I have some respect for the fact that she sat in and wanted to know about it, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, I don't deal with her politics. I don't deal with the
Hmm.
issues she talks about. I don't much care for what she talks about or how she acts. But the fact that she sat in on those hearings, I give her a little bit of respect for that because I think it's something that all Americans should be questioning, wondering about, knowing about, and that to me is very important. And this has been up for a while. My boy says you've been doing good shows. That makes
Yeah,
me
people gotta
happy.
know. People gotta know.
I'm
I'm
glad.
keeping the
I'm
business
glad.
going.
I
Keeping
am so
starting the
glad.
business.
Let me gotta check Twitch real quick because I gotta change something over in Twitch. Twitch likes to put us in podcasts and shows, but there's more people out in just chatting. So I always change it
Hmm.
over to just chatting because it is way better. Because just chatting has 374,000 viewers, as to where podcasts I think only had like 20 some odd thousand. So,
Smart.
you know,
Smart.
and it changes automatically. I don't know why. It's just something in um,
The
StreamYard.
algorithm.
And no, it's something in StreamYard. So I'm wondering if I can change it in StreamYard so that it'll always
Maybe
flip
because
back.
when I first set all that stuff up, I might have just like told it to decide where to send the stuff because of simplicity. I don't know. We'd have to go back through the settings, but I'm sure we can fix it.
Or it's just really intricate and it
Hmm.
doesn't, and Twitch just takes it for that. Because that could be it too. It could be on a Twitch thing.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal. I can change it. Like I literally just changed it while we were talking. So yeah, whistleblowers, man. This UFO thing has been getting pretty
Hmm.
thick. Also, I want to say, James, that Spider had mentioned that you were curious on my thoughts about the UFO incident. So I appreciate you asking about me. Last week I was not here; I was out. The week before that I was trash. I don't know what happened. Actually I'll tell you all what happened. So I ended up getting some form of fish from a place, and when I ate it, that next day I woke up and I was covered in hives. So I had a horrible allergic reaction. It was something they cook it in. This only happened one other time. And so there was no way that I was gonna like it was so bad that I was itching pretty much out of my skin. I had to go get some Benadryl. Took some Benadryl. Nobody bothered to tell me that Benadryl makes you super sleepy. I did
Oh
not know
yeah.
that. Next thing you know, I'm out.
Oops.
I'm like, well, you know.
Whoops.
So, I just sent a little message. I said, hey, I can't do the show tonight. So, um, we do whatever and then we'll figure it out from there. But I'm back. It has been too far gone without me, but I'm back. I'm back at the helm. But while I was gone, of course, my co-host came through with a good Saturday spiritualist. Of course, rocked the house with that, and he's been doing real good with that actually. And also, he came through on a fantastic night of uncanny earthings. So good for you.
Hmm.
Good job. Very proud of you. Killing it. I would expect nothing less from a fantastic co-host.
Show's got to go on. We take a
Show's
night
got to
off
go
every so
on.
often, but you can't take big, huge breaks and expect to keep your listener base. So.
Some people do that, and we won't say who.
Some people do that.
Some people do that, and they're like, "I'll be back next year." Like,
I don't know what happened. I just lost all my followers.
and it happens. So yeah, that's what's going down. I feel better. I look better. But yeah, let's get into this thing. So some points that I had wrote down and some really interesting key aspects here were that items that were uh, found from crashes and items that were taken from different ships and things were reverse engineered and given to defense contractors. So when I say defense contractors, I'm talking like Boeing, I'm talking like
Hmm.
Lockheed Martin. They have pieces of this. And if we look at some of the things that have happened in different parts of the world, as many of you know, the president just sent a bunch of cluster bombs over to the Ukraine, and who knows what else he sent with
Uh,
that, given that. So, if and there's been some things that have been happening, mysterious blasts that don't make any sense. Some people say that the whole forest fire thing is essentially one giant magnifying glass, so to speak, weapon that was pulled
DEW,
from aliens. Yeah, and I don't know how
directed
true that
energy.
is.
Yeah,
So
that
you know,
that happened a few years back when they had what was it, the wildfires from. There was something in California, and people
yeah,
would see pictures of like one house perfectly fine, and like five or six like houses around it burned completely to the ground, like
right
completely,
after,
like
yeah.
nothing, just ash on the ground, and one house perfectly fine. People figured, oh, it's a targeted weapon, but I mean that can happen. It's weird with fires, but fires can do that, can jump.
They can. So that happened. Also, the fact that they're being given to defense contractors is something that's kind of interesting because is that keeping people from pushing the button? Is that keeping people from using nukes because there's something far more disastrous out there that could lead to annihilation of a whole nother type? Something that would just turn the whole planet or blow the whole planet up. Or maybe not even that. Maybe just extinguish human life. Maybe do something of that nature. So that to me was pretty interesting. There was three gentlemen at the panel. They were answering all sorts of different questions, but a lot of the questions that they were asked, some of the more intricate knowledge questions
Hmm.
were like, "Hey, I'll give it to you in a skiff later on in a private meeting." Every almost like the more serious questions were all private meeting, private meeting, private meeting. So far we had the I think it was like 2 years ago, a year or two ago, we had the Pentagon papers that were released about UFOs, and there were all sorts of redacted
Hmm.
black, um, black side or shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say black smudges with the redactions for the
Markered out and
words. Yeah,
stuff,
thank you.
black highlighters.
So yeah, that's that, and there wasn't really any information on there. They claim they exist,
Yeah.
but you have to wonder why the government would tell us they exist now, why they would allow this to go through. What are they doing on the other side of things if they're letting, like, what is going on if they're giving us this information? Because the government doesn't give up information cheap. They don't give up information at all.
Mm.
And, we learned about top secret projects involving human experimentation years after they happened, many
Mm.
years after they happened. So just something to
Tuskegee.
think about. Yeah, the Tuskegee experiment, the CIA dropping crack
Hmm.
cocaine into poor neighborhoods, and the effects, the after effects, train tracks being loaded with weapons and just
Fast
rail
and
cars
Furious.
shipped out and just sitting there overnight, people just going and picking them up, you know. And you listen, that's another thing too. The whole that whole thing, and you have to wonder why they're so intent on covering that up. I always like to think that it's not just something that one person, unless you have dirt on the president himself, which or even further, I think this is
Mm.
because my opinion, and you guys can take it for what it's worth. I'm not going to delve into my political beliefs. I don't necessarily believe that the country is run by a president, more like corporations and things like that, lobbyists, because that's the problem, really. And so, if the government is willing to drop this sort of a bombshell, but I think we're at a point, really, I mean, honestly, we're at a point where people don't really care. Like, I don't mean like you guys or myself. I care.
Mm.
This is crazy, but most people don't.
Hmm.
And I think we live in an age of fast information, but short attention spans. That congressional hearing was 2 hours and 27 minutes long, roughly about 2 hours and maybe 12 minutes, because like there was some uh, border thing that was going on too that they were meeting about
Yeah,
involving
they
the
lumped a couple
cartels.
things in
Yeah.
because they were, trying to do as much business, quote unquote, business in one as they could get.
So it skipped over to that. I didn't watch
Mhm.
that. But the fact that they did that, it's kind of serious. Alien lockdowns.
You
Are
know,
you maybe that now see, I think there's some things, and I'll say this. A lot of people, they talk about Project Blue Beam, right? Being able to beam this thing into the sky, and here comes the Messiah, or here comes, whatever, alien ships, this, that, and the third. But I think we're at a point now where people have heard it so much that that's the first thing they're going to go to. They're going to go to that thought of like, hey, we already heard you guys were going to do this. So we are 100% not buying your BS. But I think it's a smoke and mirrors thing, just like I think this is. I think
hmm
they're giving us the most bare bones thing because they talk about crash retrieval, and they said they found non-human entities. Now, somebody in the chat knows.
non-human biological material is what they said specifically.
Now,
So,
see, I heard non-human entities. That's what I heard. The one guy, that's what he said. They might have said that too.
mm,
They might have said both, but I
could have
heard
because there's
non-human
different
entities. Yeah.
there's different interviews and things, and I didn't watch everything. I watched a little bit of parts of it today, and I've seen some other quotes over the last week or so leading up to it. But I don't think anybody's got the whole gist of it, honestly.
No, because a lot of it too is government babble, if you will, the good old fashioned, who said it? And oh, we can't tell you. We'll tell you in a private meeting. Where did they get their information from? Oh, we can't tell you.
Mm,
We'll tell you in a private meeting. Oh, what did you retrieve from the crash? We can't tell you. We'll tell you in a private meeting. What does
hmm
this thing do? We can't tell you. We'll tell you in a private meeting. And I would say 85% of the hearing was basically we can't tell you. Well, we can tell you, but you're going to have to file in for a report, and then from that report, you're going to have to go from the report, and then we'll get a hold of you and we'll go from there.
hmm
Hello, Apple. Welcome, welcome. So from the report, then we could talk to you, and we'll proceed from there. And that was 85% of the congressional hearings this time. But like I said, there was little things that I found. There's something I made a connection to that I'm not going to bring it up here just in case. I want to be safe because this is something that I found today, and I linked something in my brain, and me and you will talk about this when there's off not off air, just when I
I'll
see
tell you in a
you.
private meeting.
I'll tell you in a private meeting. Exactly. I'll say, listen, I'll tell you to skip in a private meeting. Exactly. That's exactly what I said. And something else they talked about, the Boeing Corp got something from a red rectangular ship that was as long as a football field.
Hmm.
Football field. You have to wonder where and how somebody did not see that. There's probably places in the United States that maybe nobody would see something as big as a football field, but you'd be hard pressed in this day and age with everybody having their populations sporadically spread out in different locations. You got to wonder if somebody didn't, or if they did see it, they just covered it up. But Boeing has something from this red cube, the size of a football field. Everybody knows about the Tic Tac UFOs. They're like Tic Tacs, the mints. And
hmm
some guy said, not the Chinese social media app. There was laughter and somebody clapped. I think, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to that part.
Yeah.
But they found one that had zero exhaust, and it matched their ships in seconds. The exhaust itself wasn't there. Now, whenever we think of planes, cars, anything with a motor has an exhaust. It's burning off. In cars, you're putting the oil and the gas and the oxygen, mixing it all together, and then it combusts. And then the exhaust is the exhaust. It's the trash basically that comes from all of it. But these didn't have that. They didn't have that at all. They just sat there non floating, just floating up in the air, which is we've heard this before. We've seen videos of ships just sitting and then taking
Hmm.
off, sitting, taking off. And to me, that definitely screams other form of energy, other form of power. Mercury, some people say. Some people say it was Mercury. Also, they talked about different crafts, but they couldn't get into too much detail about those crafts either because, once again, I'll tell you in a private meeting. And that's
Hmm.
really how it went. It went private meeting style.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of. I don't want to digress too far away from the topic, but there are, when you talk about distractions and things, there are a lot of things going on in the news right now that are real weird. Like you got the whole UFO thing all of a sudden being taken super serious, right? Out of left field, to be honest.
Yeah, it
Like
was
all of
kind
a
of out
sudden
of
you
left
got
field.
that.
It's
You've
true.
got you've got the president's son thing. You've got yet another Trump thing. You've got the thing that happened in Russia with the mercenary group that
Yeah,
every way you look at it, it stinks. And
yeah,
people are just like,
agreed.
oh, they're destabilizing Russia. And that's the farthest I'm going to get into that because that's a whole conversation. But I'm just looking at all this stuff. I'm like, there's
Listen,
all these things happening. What's really going on? What's the real news? What's
yeah,
the actual news behind all of this stuff? Because there's this massive amount of just saturated information that isn't really super important. And then they throw you stuff that people are kind of interested in, like us and the community. That I think this is more for the conspiracy people to give them something to chew on.
yeah.
Like I don't think there's going to be a lot that's going to come out of it. Like you mentioned the papers that came out a couple years back. There was big anticipation. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, they're going to say something," and I was like, "Well, let's wait and see." And we even did a show on it.
Which
Um,
one was that one?
um, I don't remember for sure
How long ago
exactly.
was it?
I think it was when we were still audio. I don't think we were in video yet.
Oh, so that's
It's been a while.
I don't remember when we started doing video. So
Yeah, I mean it's I mean this is still kind of recent, but we've been doing it for a while now. So, but it was before that, and like I was skeptical at the time, and then when it came out, like you said, it was all super redacted, and it basically didn't say anything. And it was only like the whole thing was only a page, and then a couple
right,
paragraphs on the other side. That was it. Plus all the redactions on that. It wasn't like redacted to just that amount. It was that was it, and then redacted. So I don't know. I can hope that something is going to come out of it, and the people are going to be more interested, and they're going to do some more digging. But I feel like it's something to keep the conspiracy people chewing on something and to make it look like Congress is doing something because most of the time they don't do anything
right.
really. Which
Taking
is what we
Matt
talked about
Holloway.
last week. We talked about how it's all this stuff is it's hard to say whether any of it is actually work for them or whether it's just talking points.
And the sheer amount of, we'll talk about it in private meeting, is interesting to note that they're just basically giving you something to chew on for a brief moment. Like, yeah, here you go. Here's a little bone for you conspiracy theorists out there. Go ahead. You can have this one. We're going to do something else, though, that you're not going to understand. And we'll wait like 5 years and then we'll tell you that we did it. But then
Mm-hmm.
it's already done. The damage is already finished. And it's like, it's a very cyclical thing. Another thing that they talked about at these congressional hearings, that people were actually injured while working on UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. They've changed the vernacular for this thing
Mm-hmm.
so many times. It's not even funny at this point. They changed it, but he goes on to say, okay, was it like radiation or what type of injuries? Can't talk about it right now. We'll talk about it in a private meeting. I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
like 85% of the conversation was based on his private meetings. But I believe definitely radiation, because if they're reverse engineering something, in my personal opinion, radiation is a major factor. Because I think that extraterrestrials, whether you believe they're Greys, Nordics, whatever, Zeta-reculans. I think that's how you pronounce that. Zeta.
Reticulans.
Reticulans.
Reticulans. Get the
Reticulan.
vernacular.
Reptilians. All that. Whatever you think they are. A lot of time these beings use radiation in their shit. That's why a lot of times people get radiation sickness and things like that. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
people have.
James and I had a pretty good talk about this last week.
I haven't trusted the government in a long time, probably ever, to be honest with you. But there's reasons for that I won't get into here because it's not really something we need to discuss. Well, and really, there's also the whole entertainment thing. People are like, I'll try that in a small town, and that riled people up. There's always little things to rile people up, and they give us a little
Bread and
bomb.
circuses.
Bread and circuses. And our country is the king of bread and circuses. It's very interesting how we're based on Roman dynamics because we're also a republic, a constitutional republic, much like Rome was, modeled after in a way. I mean, you have your football, your basketball, all that, and it's basically bread and circuses. People go to a stadium, they watch a game. Granted, they're not fighting lions, but the lions are different now. The gladiators are different now.
Mm-hmm.
So then they drop this off and they talk about different people getting hurt, whether it was from that or is another thing. What I think if these things phase into reality or phase out of reality, there's a dimensional shift. And if they're working with dimensional shifts, they could possibly, much like the Philadelphia experiment that we had talked about, I think that was like 6 months ago now, like at least 4 months ago, people were phased into the shit. Mm-hmm. So I think it could also be something similar, very much phased into the shit. It's one of those things that we don't really understand fully because none of us has ever seen it. Not one single person here. Well, I'm not going to say that because that's not fair. Maybe somebody has seen it. But something phase in and stick, maybe, like in the Philadelphia experiment, their hands were literally stuck in the bulkhead. Like the bulkhead, they had fused with the bulkhead. So I think it's something similar to that. I think the people themselves fused to the bulkhead. I don't think it was anything normal. I think it was something that was very bad. It was very, because you're working with technology that you have no idea about. And we have reversed engineered some of it. We've had to have.
And scientifically, whether we've done it or not, or whether we know we've done it or not, it is possible to move objects through like that, to phase things in and out. And I took I was in school way back, little young Spider, in high school, and our chemistry teacher, because it was basically chemistry, he told us he would give somebody a passing grade for the year, no matter what point it was, and no matter how much work you'd done, if you could figure out how to adjust the molecules in your body in such a way that they would pass through the molecules of the wall and walk through the wall. Because scientifically, it's possible.
Yep.
We just don't know how. We know that you could do it if all the molecules and all the atoms and everything were just in the right places at the right time. It could happen. And so we know that. We just can't do it yet. But somebody maybe can. And it's just not us.
Yeah. That I've heard this too, vibrational frequencies. Your body vibrates at a certain frequency. And if you can manipulate that frequency, you can manipulate the particles in your body. But the problem is colliding with other particles. That's where you run into a whole series of issues. Atoms colliding doesn't lead to a very great thing that happens. This is how nuclear bombs get created. Crashing atoms together. It doesn't work.
Particle accelerators and things, making little black holes. And
oh yeah. And that's another thing. The Higgs boson, they fired that bad boy up back. I think like it was the
CERN, CERN.
I think it was May.
It's even farther back than that because we were still working at the Sears when they were first firing it up. Like they were just finishing it up. Because somebody we knew, somebody slippery on the slopes, was all into that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's how long ago it was that they actually did all that, and they've still been tinkering since then.
Did you ever listen to those songs like you were supposed to?
No.
Yeah, I watched them turn it back on or do like, this had to be like October or something. But I had watched them turn it back on. Like I I went out to my car and literally took a break. Like it was like a solid half-hour break just from work and just watched it, turn it back on and watch the particles
Mm.
collide. And I'm like, oh yeah, what are we doing now? What's the next thing that's gonna happen? So, and that's the thing. People don't. They like to say we know what's going on. Kind of. What happens if you don't know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's all theory and it's all hypotheticals, which is great because that's what science is. Science is never settled. So when someone tells you the science is settled, you say, "Ah, no, it isn't." But it's interesting because there's so many theories and there's so many hypotheticals about it, and every so often they drop a little bit something new out there. Like right now, as far as that goes, the particles go, they're thinking that they were talking about dark matter and dark energy.
Yep.
And I read an article where they think one of those things actually doesn't exist, but one of them does. They think it's only dark matter or dark energy. I don't remember which one it was. And it's going to bug me because it was a really interesting article. And it said something about how uh, they they said that the universe isn't actually expanding as we've been believing for so long. We believe the universe is at a continued expansion rate, and eventually, like our galaxy won't be able to see the neighboring galaxy and whatever in billions of years if all that still exists. But there's a theoretical line of thought that says that that's not happening, that it's just perception, that there's something happening out there that it looks like everything is moving away when it's not, which is super interesting. And it's just, again, more science, more stuff. So it's more stuff to learn, more stuff to investigate.
Did they say if it was getting closer, or is it
They said
static?
no. They said it was staying the same, but it's just the way that everyone is able to perceive things, which is like the way the light moves in the universe. I guess was the key part because that's how you see everything. You only see what the light delivers to you. So if the light shows one thing, then you're going to believe that thing. But if the dark, either energy or matter, whatever they said, was behaving the way they thought it was, then it was interfering with the way that we see the light and the way we measure the light, which dictates how far away things are, which made it look like the inflation of the universe wasn't actually happening.
Hmm.
And it was
So,
interesting. It's not
so,
proven, of course,
so
because
it's like an optical illusion almost. We're seeing an optical illusion based on what information
which
has traveled back to our brains.
in itself is really interesting. Because if you apply that to everything else that you experience, who knows what reality you're actually experiencing and what isn't.
Once again, jumping back into the matrix theory, that this is just a computer simulation, which people love to say that. And
Mm.
we covered that. I forget, we covered that too. Few
Relatively recently, like a few
a
months
few
back,
months
I
ago.
think.
Yeah, a few months ago. Yeah. So, and they've also said that they have made commercial capabilities with the tech. Commercial,
Mm.
meaning everyday life for me and you. They have made commercial breakthroughs with this stuff. What commercial? I'm thinking a lot of like smartphones, smartphone technology, capacitors, and things like
Hmm.
that.
Different upgrades in Wi-Fi.
Yep.
I know for sure somebody out there saying the 5G, it's alien tech, and it's probably not, but it could be. It could be our continued ability to use, wireless connections, um, being able to charge things. I mean, that's more based on old Tesla things, though.
Yeah.
That they're probably now thinking, okay, we can let people have little bits of that now.
Yeah.
We didn't want you to have it before, but now you can wirelessly charge your phone on this little
Yep.
thing. That's still got to be plugged in. Still got to be plugged in. Remember, not true wireless, but
Yep.
you got to wonder like they're letting all that filter in a little bit. And there's all kinds of things like microwaves are basically use radiation.
Yeah. To cook your
They've always
food.
used it. Where did that come from? Did we develop it or did we get it from something? Because microwaves were invented around the time. It's simple stuff that we use every day. And every couple of years we get a new polymer or a new carbon fiber or a new
Yep.
this, a new material. They now said recently that they were able to have a metal that was self-healing.
I read about this.
which was
Read
interesting,
about
but
this.
they didn't give you
Yeah.
much detail on it, which they never do. But it's like little drops of stuff, and you're wondering, well, how long have we known about these little things? Are they actually that big of a deal, or is it just, oh yeah, there's this thing, but it's not going to happen? I mean, we already know we have power sources for cars that aren't based on oil and gas, that aren't electric either. Like right now, there's a lot of stuff moving over to hydrogen power, which is great because hydrogen's
Right.
cheap, like super cheap, ridiculously cheap,
Right.
cheap as expletive. And but there's other things, like there's other forms of power that we can build these vehicles out of. And how long have we known about that? We don't know because we just find out about it when they tell us about it.
Yeah. And I think that in and of itself is the problem. They just tell us what they feel like we need to know.
Hmm.
They don't go on to tell us, hey, uh,
Follow this man's advice, everybody.
oh, thank you, James. Yes, follow that advice. Well, 4 in chat, 6 in chat. Nice, nice. Yeah, and well, Apple came through, so 5 in chat. 5 in chat. Talk to us. What do you guys think about this alien business? This is serious stuff. This has serious ramifications for society. Though I think now people are so tired of every day being a history lesson that they're like, I don't know if I can deal with any more aliens. I don't know if I can deal with any more UFOs or diseases or viruses or lockdowns or anything else. You know,
Hmm.
we were kids. I don't remember any of this. I remember Alien Autopsy and Al Capone's empty vault that Geraldo looked like he just got kicked in the you know what's.
We had stuff once in a while where there'd be a bombing at the Olympics or something like
Oh
that,
yeah,
which is
remember
a
that
big deal. There'd be
Yeah,
terrorist stuff going on, and we had
yep,
like Kuwait and we had that kind of stuff, but we
yep,
didn't have like some of the weird stuff that just goes on constantly now. We didn't have
yeah,
all this just barrage of just, oh no, it's an entire world disaster. Everybody's going to die. Oh no, it's another world disaster. Everybody's going to die. Oh no, it's a political disaster. Everybody's going to die. And it's like every day you turn around, everybody's going to die. And it's just like, okay, well, I'm
gas
ready.
is expensive, rent's going up,
Everybody's going to die.
groceries are expensive, everybody's gonna die. It's a
uh,
weird, it's a constant anxiety, and people say that once they
mm-hmm,
fired that Higgs boson up, that everything went to you know what. Now I want to get into something that I think is very a buddy of mine and I were talking about. It. He said he told me that they want us to look to the stars for our technology. But I believe, and I believe this myself, the technology is just buried. It's buried
mm-hmm,
here. But they want us to look out to the stars because if we look out to the stars and we really think about that, right? It's unknown. It's not anything that is, there's no history out in the stars. We don't know anything that's happened out in the stars. Maybe the government does. I couldn't tell you, but maybe the government knows about some stars and
mm-hmm,
history and Mars and all that. But here we have stuff like the pyramids. We have stuff like the Chinese pyramids that they build whole forests over so that nobody can find them from the air. We have places in Turkey that were exhumed and they were found to be in anomalous locations. Suppose there's gateways. You go back into the Middle East and there's all sorts of different phenomena and anomalies there, things that
mm-hmm.
aren't anywhere else. Why are we over there? Why is there always wars over there? I don't think it's just because two sides can't get along. I think I think everybody's protecting something. And I think that our technology that we need to find is there. I don't think it's in the stars. I think that maybe what we're reverse engineering is maybe us. Maybe we, wherever we come from. And I've talked about this theory before about the
Mm-hmm.
Mars theory, that we come from Mars and that the planet was going to heck. So we decided to go. We all decided to go different ways and find places to go. And maybe we're getting information brought back. I know there is an alien subspecies that I've heard say that's people in like 200 years. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there are people. They had a video of it. It was obviously fake.
Yeah, and they were supposed to have come back in time or something like that, or that they came here, found us when we were not quite developed, altered our DNA with theirs, so we would develop into them and continue their culture eventually. Um, and it's interesting to talk about Mars these days too, because every so often they send something really good about
Yeah.
Mars. Like they found a lot of good stuff, but then you're
Yep.
like, but how much stuff did they find that we don't know about that they're not going to tell us about? Because
There it
there's
is.
a lot of stuff about the water, about the organisms, and about all this
Yep.
stuff that potentially, and it's super interesting, and I'm so like into it, but it's like dribble. It's like a little drop here,
Yep.
there, just to keep you interested. And it's posted with the rover pages. So it's like, oh, it's a cute rover. And it's going to tell you, look what I found today. There's evidence of water on Mars. And you're like, oh, that's really freaking awesome. What else? That's all? But who knows what they have on their end that's in a private
Yeah.
database.
Yes. Offshore bank accounts talk a lot. To be honest. And who knows who's paying? Who knows who's being top bidder? We're getting to a point in society where it's more of a world economy. It's more of a one world government aspect. Some of these wars, I think, are fake. Not fake, I should say, but they're basically, proxy wars.
Hmm.
They got somebody fighting for somebody else.
Don't get me started on that whole Russian mercenary thing. Don't
Nope.
get me started.
That's a whole mess. But that's the thing. Like
Ugh.
everything is a mess. Everything is a mess. Anxieties are higher. You have to wonder what this is. Are we speeding? Some people say the time is getting faster now too.
Yeah, by like not milliseconds, but further along by like little tiny instances that are so slight that you don't really notice them on a day-to-day basis. But over years and years of time, you just feel like, oh man, I feel like I'm rushing so much all the time. Like everything's just happening so fast. And it supposedly is.
Supposedly. So what do you think of these?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, what do you think of these
Allegedly.
government? What do you think of these whistleblowers?
It's interesting. I mean, I brought this point up last week. I brought the point up last week because before we had that show, and what really got me interested in having that show, which led to this show, was because some of our contemporaries, as I mentioned last time, are really downing on it. Like,
See, I didn't hear that. What did they say? What was all said? I missed last week's show, so give me like
and again, I'm
a
not coming out
smooth.
and being like trying to slam people or anything, because Night Dreams has been around a long time, and they're the example I use because they're the videos I saw. They posted these videos of the main host guy, not of himself, but like he was looking at a scene somewhere and he was just talking behind the camera in like a voice like this on purpose. But I'm a whistleblower. I want to be on the Hitman show, and I've seen the probings and this and that. And he made like this big thing about it. There's two videos, and I couldn't understand why. Like he was like just making fun of him without knowing anything about the hearings yet because they hadn't happened. And I get it. Sometimes you get people that are like that, and then they go on to say, "Oh yeah, we'll never have guests like that on our show." And I'm kind of like, "Why not? Even if they're out there, even if they're whatever, even if like after the show you're kind of like not a single word of what that person said was right. Here's the facts why. Why not let them talk about it? I would love to have some of these people on our show. Just
Same,
like, come on, tell me about your alien theories. Like,
same,
I don't. Even if I don't if I disagree with them, that's fine. Whatever. Who cares? Like, maybe you're right. It doesn't matter how crazy you might sound.
right?
It's like have your peace, and that's what it was. Like, that's the weird thing about this. They finally do this thing with the hearings,
Yeah,
and people who want disclosure, people who are like, give us more info, the government's hiding things, are suddenly been like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make fun of it. And I couldn't understand it. I don't know. Maybe they'll address it in one of their upcoming shows because they're doing more shows coming up soon. Maybe. I don't know. I don't actively listen to them much anymore, but it's just it's crazy. Like, why wouldn't people be more interested? Yeah, we know the hearings are probably mostly for show, but let's talk to the actual people. Let's see if we
yeah, I
can
agree.
get them on other media outlets and
Yeah,
like again, come on our show. I'll talk to you. He'll talk to you
yeah.
over there,
Over
wherever.
here,
You're over there
wherever.
on my side here.
You're over here on my
I
side.
gotta do the fusion. There it is. But yeah, come
Anyway,
on our show.
we're
We'll
infused
talk
on
to
our
you.
show. Yeah, we
We
will.
will talk to you.
We had a guy, Barry John Bauer. He was on looking for, I believe it was the Holy Grail, and he said he had found where its location was, and we had him on. I still keep in contact with him. He actually lives in the States now.
Hmm.
I think he had found him some love, and some things were going. I'm not going to put his business out on the street like that, but I would love to meet up with him at some point. If he's in the States, maybe that might be something that we could be on the show for real, for real.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk to him about that. I wouldn't mind getting a hold of him about that. But that's the thing. What are we not being told? And that's the one thing I took away from this is what are we
Mm.
not being told? Here we're being told about there's bodies, there's tech, there's defense contractors that have this tech and they're doing this and they're doing that. What are they not telling us? What is the thing that they're not telling us about? What is it that they're hiding?
Mm.
And these whistleblowers, they said, hey, are you guys in fear for your life? Are people trying to attack you? They said, yeah. They said, was there bodily harm to people who espouse these ideas? And they said, yes.
And the one guy said, "Yeah, I can't really talk much about that because I have other like sources and things I got to talk
Right.
to and whatnot." And I was like, "Well, I'll tell you in a private meeting."
Yeah, that's really what
But
it
it was
is.
still interesting. I mean, I hope some of that comes out. Like, I hope they have their private meetings, but some of those documents come out. We at least be able to read transcripts of things. I know they're going to be redacted, like always, but I would love to read them. If they're interested in transparency, like they say,
And that's another thing that was really talked about was government
mm,
transparency.
which there's been a big push for the last several years because people say, "Oh, this candidate or this president or this person here has been hiding information and doing this. We want to be more transparent." But how likely is that? How likely is it that we're actually going to get real transparency that isn't covered up by, oh, in the interest of national security? Because that's
Do
what it
we?
always is. It's in the interest of
Yeah.
national security.
But do we really want to know everything?
It's a
That's
good
that.
point.
Somebody told me that they said you want full government transparency. I said yes. They said, do you think that the people would do well with full government
I'd
transparency?
probably be angry because there's so much stuff that they do that they justify because and you can't really tell them not to because it may benefit the nation as a whole, but it's shady, bad things.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
100% shady things.
Yes.
And I'd be angry. I'd be even more angry than I usually am, which is pretty darn angry because I get
Yeah.
angry. But I don't know. It's a good point. It's a good point because a lot of people would just be like, would not be able to handle it.
100%. I don't think people could handle it, to be honest with you. I don't see it. I don't see a full transparency ever happening unless the United States falls as a whole, and we're able to get a hold of those documents. That would be about the only way I could see things
Yeah.
actually being fully transparent.
Unredacted, of course, which
Yeah,
is
unredacted.
not likely because that stuff happens pretty quickly after the
Oh, yeah.
fact. Like there's there's been actual evidence over the years of when they have private hearings and things where they'll have the person doing the transcripts and then as soon as they're done with a sentence,
Yep.
cover up,
Cover up.
redacted
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
they don't remember it. They just, you know, make sure you make a note, redact this, redact this. They got like an earpiece that says do that. And that's not me
Yeah.
just making stuff up. It's how they do things. They do that with courts sometimes too because there's details that are private that can't go out into public record. And so who knows? I mean, I would like to hope that some of that stuff is going to get out, but I feel the same way as when those papers were talked about, that when they finally got here, it was as I expected. There's not much there first, and then that they blocked out most of it.
Yeah. And there was, the whistleblower hearings, like it was the whole I'll talk about it with you in a private room or a private meeting. Send me this and we'll talk. And the thing is, they gave enough. They gave enough to whet your appetite. I'll tell you that much. Not fill it, but the whole we found non-human entities. We are dealing with government cover-ups involving Boeing and defense contractors having alien technology. We're dealing with reverse engineering and people getting hurt off the reverse engineering. meaning, and when they said hurt, they didn't give it was a very broad term.
Yeah.
They didn't specify. So this could be somebody falling on it and getting hurt. This could be somebody slipping and falling in the area, and they would just report that as an accident. And then people don't get that. But then the radiation thing, the fusing thing, I think that's all part and parcel to what we're dealing with. I think that
Hmm.
in and of itself is why we should be looking into this. I think the American public deserves to know. Maybe not everything though, because I don't think most people could handle it right. I think there'd be rioting, looting, burning. People would not. They would think, well, what else have you not told us?
And there's a lot.
There's a hell of a lot. I
There's
mean,
an
we have
awful lot.
we have Operation Northwoods, where they basically were going to dress up as Cubans and attack American soldiers so they could start a war with Cuba.
Hmm.
Operation Paperclip, we brought little Nazis over. Werner von Braun, the V2 rocket creator, was brought over here to help with NASA, the space program, because Germany was about to go to space. They were they were on the cusp of something big, and Russia and the United States pretty much broke them. Well, Russia and Europe pretty much broke them. And
Germany developed the jet engine.
yeah,
Like they were so far ahead of everybody else in aerospace.
yeah,
Like so far ahead. But because we put the economic squeeze on them, they didn't have the money to keep building the stuff. Supposedly, that's the public story. Who knows? But then we got jet technology, you know?
yeah, and because this it's going to cross lines that most people don't think that would ever be crossed. Everybody likes to say, "Oh no, they would never do that," but then you do have these experiments that did happen in the
It's
30s and 40s and 50s and 60s.
it's crazy because the public stuff is bad enough. Like the whole cluster bombs to your Ukraine thing. Are you serious? Like, and people are just like, oh, well, okay. Like that's
Yeah, news
really
things.
like that's war crimes right
100%.
there. But like, yeah, we're gonna send them these things that just indiscriminately kill people in all directions. Like, okay, go ahead. That's great. We're gonna win. We're gonna win against those nasty Russians.
The United States is fighting a proxy war against Russia with the Ukraine being the middleman, more or less fighting with the American weapons, you know. And you're right. The big bad Russian boogeyman strikes again. But that is a narrative that the United States has had since, they butted heads with communist Russia
Hmm.
in World War II. We were cool then, and then when it was over, it was like we don't like y'all, and y'all don't like us,
Hmm.
so we should probably just fight. For real, we should probably just fight and get it over with. But it wasn't a real war. It was just a series
Hmm.
of chessboard moves that culminated into poor Soviet technology, i.e., Chernobyl.
Hmm.
Them use their reactors were built different. Like the MK2s were built different than our reactors. Our reactors worked on a different level. Like power was cooled different. The water cooling idea was different.
Hmm.
Everything was different. And the Russians weren't. They were very much like slap together a nuclear reactor and hopefully it holds the radioactive materials. But when you had the radioactive bars that were just jumping out of the thing, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what technology was given to what
Hmm.
country, who it was given to, why it was given to them, and what they were supposed to do with it. Because I mean, maybe we do have a um, an outside alien presence that wants us to sort of destroy each other. Maybe that's what they want, mutually assured destruction. Maybe that's what it is. I don't
And there's
know.
a free planet.
And then there's a free planet. Then they can just terraform it.
Hmm.
Obviously, these things can't be proven. It's conjecture, but it's still something that I think we need to look more into because, like James said, once the people truly find out what they've been into, not what they think they've been into, it's gonna. I think it'll cause a civil war. To be honest with you, I think people lose their s. You know, and I think that's something, and I think that's why they dropped this whole whistleblower alien thing because people are getting in an all-time distrust of the government. So the government's like, I'll give you a little bit. We'll give you a little bit of alien stuff. That should sedate you and satiate you for the time being. And then whenever y'all get riled up again, we'll give you something else that'll slowly calm you down. And Oh
Military
yeah.
industrial complex.
Yep. The thing that Eisenhower warned us about.
Yeah,
So
that speech is pretty legendary. Like,
it's up
I
there with
can't,
JFK's Secret Society
uh,
speech.
I can't say it from memory completely, but I know all of it. Like, I can just run it through my head and be like, "Yep, I know."
He can't say it verbatim. He can run it through his head verbatim.
And he knew because he was leaving. He was like, "I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say it. I'm leaving. My
Yeah.
term's over.
Yeah.
I'm out. But I'm gonna tell all you people this is what's going on."
And it just got bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, we're
Hmm.
invading the Middle East. For what? It's not oil. It's not oil. I can tell you guys that right now. I think there's something there. They keep finding anomalous things in places like Turkey, places like Baalbek, places like Saudi Arabia. All those places, they're finding all these things. And I don't think it's just as simple as people think it is anymore. I think it's a chess game. And
Hmm.
I think the winners win, the losers lose. But I think the losers lose badly. Like they lose so bad that they just don't exist anymore. You get rid of them, you get rid of their families, or you witness protection them, throw them in defense, and just say, "Hey, this is the rest of your life. Deal with it. If you don't, we're going to kill you." Simple as that.
We do lose sometimes, like the United States, because the
Oh
United
yeah,
States lost out in Syria.
yeah,
We tried to do a regime change there, even though we said we weren't. Oh yeah, we're not really. We're just gonna try to nudge the people so they push Assad out of power, and he was like, "Nah, my people love me. Get out of my country." And we do have troops there still as part of NATO and a couple other things,
right.
but he's still there, and he's like back with the other Arab nations. They're all good, you know. We lost. We basically lost there. Um, I could say Afghanistan, but Afghanistan was never meant to be won anyway. That's all just
No,
for public perception. I think we were just there just to make it look like we were doing something, and when we left, it was there to make it look like we left a mess because we did. The whole thing in Afghanistan was just a big old like paper cutout the whole
yeah,
time. We didn't train people. We didn't do anything. So when we left, it was just like, oh, okay, Afghanistan's taken back over.
yeah.
So that doesn't count as much. But still, it's like we go out there, we try to do our thing, and sometimes we lose. Probably more often than people see.
Not to mention what Egypt has done in their whole Ministry of Antiquities and the things that they've hidden. That doesn't count ISIS going in and destroying Buddhist statues in different parts of the Middle Eastern world, which you have to shake your head. Why was there Buddhists in the Middle Eastern world? If our boy Todd David Anderson was here, he could tell us why there was Buddhists in another world. Yes, sir. There it is up there. So yeah, I mean, in all honesty, that's what it is. It's, do you want your government to tell you everything? Because then the government's probably going to have to go. I think you tell them all about the messed up stuff that y'all have
Mm-hmm.
done. I think it's a powder keg, and I think things like this, they give you your little bits and snippets of life. Here you go. There's some alien. Sure, now shut up. Go back to work. Go back to consuming, and just leave us alone
Mm-hmm.
for now. And then when you get riled up again, we'll give you a little bit more, and we'll just keep giving you a little bit more, and we don't even have to make it make sense. It can be, if it's more ridiculous, better. Next they'll be like, yeah, well, we found this in Antarctica that's related to this. Oh no,
The
yeah.
roundworms. They found the roundworms, and then they thawed them out, and the
Oh
roundworms
yeah,
make
what's up
more
with that?
roundworms.
Leave stuff
Oh no,
alone.
roundworms can get into people, like they're parasitic. So I'm kind of like, why would you wake it up? They're parasites. That's like the thing now. Like now the whole thing is like it's gonna start taking over people.
Not to mention the Mongolian death worms.
Ugh.
That's a whole. I think we've talked about them before.
I'll drink to that.
You already did.
I know. That's why I said it.
Anyways, guys, what do you guys think? Whistleblowers, all that. Let us know. Send me an email, thisuncanny@gmail.com. Join our Patreon, patreon.com/thisuncanny. We're going to be working on some content this weekend, so if you guys are ready for that, there'll be some behind-the-scenes content that will go up on the Patreon. I'm waiting until I have we have enough content on the Patreon to relaunch it, kind of, because it's been tough. The Patreon was a
We
tough one.
started it up And then that's when all the lockdowns and the virus and everything happened, and
Yep.
we had a lot of plans for things, and then that changed how the funds came in. That
Yep.
changed how we were able to go and look for places.
Yep.
So it's like, oh yeah, big deal, Patreon, and then you can't do that.
Couldn't do
So
anything.
it's like,
That the it basically screwed us over. The
yeah,
lockdown screwed us over bad. We're just now recovering from the lockdowns themselves. It's been that bad for the show. I'm not like it hasn't been horrible, but it's been tough,
mhm.
And so we're asking you to pledge $200 to get this Uncanny Earth tote bag, and that's it. If you pledge 300, you'll get the DVD box set.
If you pitch 400, you actually get the straps for the tote bag.
Yeah, and if you pitch 500, we come out and sign the tote bag.
But you
We
also
did
have to
that
pay for
once.
gas on top of that.
Yes, we did that once. Me and him met at a Starbucks on the Strip to sign a
Mhm.
shirt, I believe, for Todd David Anderson,
That's right.
because it had to go out that day. It had to go out that day. Valerie was like, "Hey, I'll be up there. We gotta sign it. I gotta take it to the post office." So
Yep.
that was good stuff. That was good stuff. Anyways, guys, it is that time for us to leave up out of here. Look for some good content coming real soon. We're gonna be getting together real soon too to film
Hmm.
some good content. So we're gonna do that. Um, but yeah, that's it. Also, we will be doing an after show tonight where we're gonna be talking about some of our favorite alien movies. Gonna be
Ooh.
discussing that. There's some good ones. So, guys, make sure you're tuned in. Make sure you're watching. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that heckin' like button. Watch the older episodes. Join the Patreon. Help us out. Let's make this Uncanny Earth the best damn show on the planet. James, you're always welcome. You're a good guy. We appreciate you very much. And like always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week.